Today I want to return to the Secrets of the Obscure expansion and look at an area introduced to the game that really surprised me, and it's the Wizard's Tower. This basically acts as a third zone in the expansion, in addition to the two main zones that were added, where the Wizard's Tower is essentially a city similar to locations like Divinity's Reach and Lion's Arch. Today I want to go over my 10 favorite things in the Wizard's Tower, so let's get started. Coming in at number 10 is an interesting secret you can find in the map, and that is this Karka Hive that is prospering in an alcove on the western side of the tower. There are a ton of different secrets around this map, and I'm going to be sharing a few of those in this list, but these are a bunch of Karka that have a hive and are just living their best life right here. You also have a sign written by the Lion's Arch authorities that is posted here warning you about flesh-eating swarms. Now this is a reference to Living World Season 1 from the Lost Shores update, where we were obviously introduced to the Karka, and we also saw the sign posted in Lion's Arch warning us about them. I'm not exactly sure why this is here in the Wizard's Tower, but it looks like Isgarren and the Wizards like to keep a bunch of different stuff from across Tyria that we will be talking about throughout this video. And on that note, in the number 9 spot I have the Wizard's Vault. This is an interesting location in the Wizard's Tower that is connected to a new mechanic introduced with the expansion. The old daily and login achievements and rewards were replaced with the Wizard's Vault, which changes how the daily system works, where a big part of it is you can now get some really cool rewards by doing dailies, weeklies, and special objectives. The Wizard's Court have accumulated a ton of different artifacts which can be found here in the Wizard's Vault, and lore-wise I believe this is basically where we are getting these new items from. But exploring this spot in the Wizard's Tower is super cool. There are a bunch of different objects down here such as special weapons and legendary weapons, various different artifacts and pieces of furniture, piles of gold, a cool forgotten statue, and more. There's a fun, intriguing object that you can examine and find out there's a little placard that says do not touch, but if you decide to pick it up, you get scolded by the Grand Archivist, who is someone that you can chat with to learn more about this place, the new daily system, and this character, who reveals a piece of information that might be super important in a future story. In the number 8 spot we have another hidden fun thing, and that is Zhaitan. This is another super weird thing just like the Karka Hive that you can find in a random alcove of the tower, where you got a dark green portal with a bunch of tendrils of Zhaitan sticking out from the portal. These are the small heads that were attached to the dragon and also appeared on the Glory of Tyria during that boss fight. And there's just a bunch sticking out of a portal here in the Wizard's Tower. This is super strange to see, and it really makes me wonder what exactly is going on here. If I were to make some guesses, this is probably another thing that the Wizard's Court have just collected, where they have this portal here with the tendrils of Zhaitan sticking out of it because they can. I think there are small Easter eggs all around the tower that reference different eras of Guild Wars 2, where we saw the Karka Hive that represents Living World Season 1, and now we have these tendrils that represents the core personal story. Then there are a bunch of other things we can find that remind me of different parts of the game, and then just a bunch of other Easter eggs around the tower. Coming in at number 7 is a super fun Easter egg, and it is the special mushroom circle. This is a super cool spot right above the Rift Hunter Lounge in the grassy area, where the spot is pretty cool as a whole. You got Gladium and Richard Chick hanging out, a bunch of young Skyscales, you have a group of Fractal survivors, and a Rift Hunter that you can talk to, and see how the Fractals in Skywatch Archipelago are pretty horrible because of what is going on to the people in them, and then the area is just gorgeous with the trees and grass in the Wizard's Tower all around it. But in the center of the grassy area is a mushroom circle, which I love the look of mushrooms and most other plants, and mushroom circles are always fun to see. But if you run through this circle, you actually get transformed into a mushroom for a few seconds, which lets you run around the area as one. Which a very interesting thing about this transformation is that you also get the skills from the Heart of Thorns adventure of A Fungus Among Us, where you can leap forward and launch yourself and stuff. But this transformation is super short, so you only have a few seconds of time to use these abilities. Coming in at number 6 are all the quarters for the most important wizards in the Wizard's Court. We got one for Isgarren, Dagda, Lear, and Mabon, and all these rooms are decorated to fit the style and personality of each individual character and the race they belong to, where there are a lot of details in each of these rooms, but let's just highlight them all really quickly. Isgarren's room has a super cool bed and also some telescopes. He's got a statue of a Forgotten in here, which is super interesting because he is a seer and there are no longer any Forgotten in the Wizard's Court. You learn he has a pet that only needs to be fed once a century, and you learn he is a fan of wizard smut. Dagda's room has a ton of ancient scrolls and a very dark atmosphere. You can learn about Dagda's connection to some of the other wizards, and you can also read an emotional letter written to her by another character. Lear's room feels like a dwarven stronghold and has a giant forge in it. You got a lot of kegs, cool chairs, and a bunch of decorations that just make this room feel super dwarven and homey. And then Mabon's room, where there are a ton of books and pages throughout this room that Mabon had. You got an age journal that is super cool to read, but you learn from it that the Mabon market in Caledon Forest is named after this Mabon, who was hiding as a char at the market. Also, there is a bed in this room as well as in Isgarren's, which implies that the Mersat and Seers sleep laying down and tucked under some comfy blankets. In the number 5 spot is the festival area. This is a fun corner where you can find a bunch of decorations for Winter's Day and Shadow of the Mad King. I think this is another one of those places where the Astral Ward and Wizard's Court just collect a bunch of stuff. But I'm sure many people within the Astral Ward enjoy celebrating various Tyrian holidays, and this is a place that stores some of those decorations. Where on that note, I really hope we get to see the Wizard's Tower decorated for Shadow of the Mad King and Winter's Day. But looking around the decorations in this area, you got snow falling, a snowman, a bunch of candy canes, a bunch of candy corn, a jack-o'-lantern, floating candles, a scarecrow, and a bunch of other decorations. I just love this area, and talking about it in this video really put me in the mood to play through Shadow of the Mad King, which is a good thing because it's coming up soon. In the number 4 spot, I have Wizard's Respite. This is a cute and relaxing area in the northwest corner of the Wizard's Tower map. Or for people who are struggling with getting all the map completion objectives in the zone, there's another area called Open Sky on the northernmost end of the map, and in the northwest corner is a floating island detached from the Wizard's Tower, which has a vista, a point of interest, and a mastery point on it. But this island is super cool. You got a nice area with some hammocks and umbrellas, a cool plaza with really cool looking benches, a gorgeous pond with a waterfall, some diving boards that you can jump off of into the pond and find some cool plants and koi fish, a portal that will take you up to a high dive that gives you a higher jump, and a bunch of Astral Ward around this area. I especially like this one who has special stretching animations and hypes themselves up to jump into the water here. And there are so many cool details here. The animations, the fact that she actually jumps into the water, the splash when they land, how it loops and she does it again. It's just honestly incredible. And I love this spot and how it serves as a place for some of the members of the Astral Ward to go and relax for a bit. Coming in at number 3 are all the different collections and achievements that are connected to the Wizard's Tower. This spot is kind of for the expansion as a whole, but the Wizard's Tower serves as a starting area for multiple different collections that have you going around the 2 new maps and older maps in Tyria as well. For anyone who has done the collections in Arborstone from the Ender Dragons expansion, you can find some stuff similar to that here, with characters telling some stories. But there are a bunch of other achievements as well, different mini-games that you can do around the tower, as well as all the adventures you can do around the tower. This map just has a bunch of details, including a bunch of achievements, and it is super nice to see. In the number 2 spot, I have the central crafting area, and kind of just the tower as a whole, where if you look at the central area here, you got a waypoint, a mystic forge, a trading post, a bank, and all the crafting stations in a super condensed area, and is actually a pretty good place to hang out in. Where the Wizard's Tower serves as a central hub for this expansion, similar to Arborstone and Ender Dragons or the Eye of the North in the Iceroot Saga. But unlike those 2 hubs, the Wizard's Tower feels more like a city, where if you go back to the original release of Guild Wars 2, we got cities like Divinity's Reach, Lion's Arch, the Grove, and so on, where the Wizard's Tower feels like one of those maps. The crafting conveniences in this map are great, then you also got some hub-like stuff like the entrance for this expansion strikes, and then a bunch of other stuff around here. Where on top of that, this area has map completion just like the original cities, and then there are just so many details and fun things around this entire map that are super cool. I am really pleasantly surprised by the Wizard's Tower, and I am so happy that this is what we got with it. But now for the number 1 spot. For my favorite thing in the entire Wizard's Tower. This might be a bit controversial, but people who have watched many of my videos probably suspected that this would make it to the number 1 spot. It is the Wizard's Trial. This is the jumping puzzle located in the Wizard's Tower that has both a race and an adventure connected to it, and it's pretty fun. The controversial part about this is how it is a jumping puzzle, which are often hit or miss for players, but I love this one quite a bit, and also how some people have a hard time finding the entrance to this place, and I have definitely guided a few people over here. If you are confused on where to go, you can follow the outer ring west-southwest of the tower courtyard waypoint, and right before you get to where you would turn right to go to the under construction point of interest, you can turn left to go down this hallway and interact with the door to enter this puzzle. And this puzzle is super cool. Let me walk you through it. The first room has a few moving platforms on it that you simply need to jump across, but they are moving, so you definitely need to be a little careful and time things right. But if you look down, you can see a massive drop into nothingness as you would fall into the sky below the Wizard's Tower. Getting to the end of the first room will teleport you to a second room where there are 3 different types of platforms, a square, a diamond, and a circle, where only one of these platforms can be stood on at any one time. If you look up to the far end of the room, you can see the 3 platforms, and one will be lit up for a few seconds before it changes to another, meaning you have a few seconds to jump on that type of platform before you have to time your jump to the next type and start jumping on those. Getting to the end of the second room will teleport you to a third room where there are a bunch of moving platforms, but this time they are spinning. And if you look up, you can see that there are 3 different layers to this room, where you have to make it across all 3 of these layers and get to the end to complete the puzzle and get your rewards. And as someone who just absolutely loves jumping puzzles in Guild Wars 2, I had an absolute blast with the Wizard's Trial. It was super fun for me to figure out for the first time, and I love running through it again. And this is why it is my favorite thing in the entirety of the Wizard's Tower. And that's my list. I hope you enjoyed. I'm definitely pleasantly surprised by this map because of how much effort was put into all the little details around this area. Because of that, I obviously could not fit every cool thing I have found around the map in this list. I threw some honorable mentions down in the description, but please feel free to leave some of your favorite spots in the comments. There really is a lot of stuff in this map, and it is one of my favorite parts of the Secrets of the Obscure expansion. I hope you all are taking good care of yourselves. Have a good one, everyone.